Today, we're going to be chatting about the 5 deadly nurturing mistakes that solopreneurs are making online, on social media, and diving into all things that are selling the right way. So, before anything, like I always do every single week, I will talk about what is nurturing and why it's important because it's very important for me to tell you what the thing is we're talking about and why you should actually be doing it. So, nurturing actually, very, very simply, is just building trust and relationships with leads over time. More specifically, leads who aren't ready to buy or don't know enough about you or what you do. So if you're trying to sell somebody who doesn't know you and they don't even know what you do and trying to push them onto a call or like sell them anything for that matter, and they don't know you, they have no relationship with you, there's zero trust, it's going to be really, really hard for you to get that sale. And this is what most solopreneurs miss is they try to go straight from a lead to selling them something. Now, I touched on this many, many times, but something that's really important to understand is that there will always be a small percentage of the market that is ready to buy, but those people will always self select. So those people will book a call with you or they'll tell you in the DMs, like, hey, I'm really struggling with this. Like, can you help me with this? They'll be very upfront about it and forthcoming. So you don't really have to worry too much about, but they will self identify. Other than that, you want to be focused on building trust and relationships with people over time because that is when they're going to come to you when they're ready or when they feel like whatever it is, they have the money, they're in the position where they just can't solve their problem, whatever it is. And something that an example I like to use is that my last 3 clients have all came to me. One was following me for 6 months, one was 8 months, and one was on my email list for over a year before they were ready and finally decided to join my program. So it just goes to show the sales cycles are generally longer than we think. And with what happens in between is nurturing. It's that really it's the space where it feels like nothing is happening, but a lot is happening. All right. And it's important. Like, why is it important? Why should you be nurturing? Is because it pre-sells for you. So if somebody's following you for 6 months and they're reading your emails, reading your content, in a community you own or whatever, they're going to get to know your story. They're going to get to know how you speak, how you teach, if you can help them, if you can't help them, all those types of things. So by the time they are ready to buy, they're already pre-sold. They're just kind of like, hey, tell me where to sign. It also increases LTV, which is lifetime value. This is really important because the people who have stuck around with me the longest are the people that I generally nurtured the longest. So if I were to go on LinkedIn today and start spamming some DMs, trying to get somebody on a call and get them to pay me money, out of 100 people, maybe one person might, maybe, but those people typically don't stick around very long. And it's not because that you're not good at what you do. It could be, but it's not always the case. It's because they don't, have enough relationship, enough trust with you to stick around. They might work with you for a month and then leave, right? The people who stay the longest have the highest lifetime value are always the people you have the best relationships with, you built the most trust with over time. The next one is you get to indoctrinate your worldview, your philosophy, and your methodology. So I know the word indoctrinate might sound kind of like psyopy or kind of scary, but when you're marketing, what you want to do is show people your philosophy, right? Your methodology. Like, how do you get things done? How do you get your clients a result that's different than the way that other people get them a result? Like, why are you better, right? What is your worldview? Like, why are you doing the things you're doing? Things like that. You get to show them that, get them to understand that, and indoctrinate them into your way of doing things. Next is you get to share your story and why you're different and become the obvious choice. Pretty much nowadays, no matter what you're doing online, you are going to be or you are going to have a lot of competition, right? There's just no way around it unless you're in an absolutely new discovered niche or blue ocean. You're going to be you're not going to be alone, right? And it's really important to understand like why you're different and why should people choose you over the other person. And nurturing is what's going to allow you to tell them why. And then finally, build the trust and relationships needed for consistent client ascension. So taking a lead that you magnetized into a paying client, the nurturing piece comes there. Something that's really important to understand is this timeline is very, very different for every single person. Some people might come to you when they're really just really ready to have a problem solved and they believe that you are the person to do it, whether it's your authority, your social proof, whatever. And you may have done very little nurturing. And when they book a call, you just send them a video that explains what you do. And so by the time they're on the call, they're just asking you questions or they have objections that you can handle. Other people take a year, some people longer. So there's no one time frame to nurture people. But the thing to understand is the trust and the relationships have to be there. Nobody's ever going to buy anything. Relationship, people might buy something without a really strong relationship, but they will not ever without trust. And so nurturing is the best way to do that and to show people everything I just showed you here. So hopefully now you understand what nurturing is and why it's important, because now we can talk about the mistakes. So I've been working with solopreneurs for the last 2.5 years coaching, and I've seen a lot of mistakes. Of course, myself, I'm not perfect, right? I've made a lot of mistakes early in my journey. I'm still making mistakes, okay? These 5 deadly mistakes are the ones that I've seen to be the biggest, most common, and cost you the most money. So that's why I only did 5. There's, of course, way more, but these are the ones that are actually going to hurt you the most. And hopefully, by the time you finish this video or finish watching this, or anyone who's on the call is going to understand how to avoid these, because once you avoid these, you will start attracting more people, not just attracting them, but building that trust and the relationships. So let's dive in. So the first deadly mistake is not nurturing at all. I know it sounds kind of funny, almost too simple, but you will be surprised how many people just don't have any nurturing system at all in their business. So this leads to rushing a sale, right? So you're in the DMs with somebody, or somebody comments on a post, or someone follows you on LinkedIn, and you're just like, oh my God, somebody's liked my post or somebody's commenting, and you start DMing them, you connect with them, and then you're just pushing them on a sales call. Okay. That's one of the worst things that you can do, because it hurts your positioning, which is the second one right here, because now you look needy. Now you look like you're not in demand, right? There's not a bunch of people ready, excited to work with you. And you're just coming across like you're pushing them into a sale. So even if they do buy, there will be some sense of resentment, just because they feel like they kind of made a decision that they didn't want to make. So those are the two first reasons. But the third one is not collecting data and information. So one of the strongest points about nurturing and lead generation in general is going to be collecting leads. So their email, right? Some of their info. You can collect their phone numbers, things like that, because then you can start emailing them. And guess what emailing is? It's nurturing, right? You're nurturing them over time. You're showing up in their inbox. It's a little more private. There's more ways to nurture than just email. I'm just using that as an example right now. But really important that if somebody shows any sort of interest in you, you can somehow capture their data, their information, so you can start nurturing them. Because once again, like I put under here, is there will be people ready to buy, okay? Roughly 3 to 5% of your market who are going to be ready to buy. Let them self-identify. So they will tell you, they will book a call, they will like ask you, how can you help me? But for the other 95% of people, you want to collect their data so you can start nurturing them over time. So that's the first mistake, is just not nurturing at all and just rushing every single person who looks somewhat interested into a sales call and trying to sell them something, or not even into a call, just strictly selling them in the DMs. If any of you are on LinkedIn, you've definitely been connected with and pitched. So you know what this is exactly like, how bad that looks for that person, the positioning, the neediness, the lack of authority. I could go on and on. You understand. So that's the first one. Second one is not creating your own world. And this is, I'm going to elaborate on this because that does sound a little vague if you don't know what it means. But essentially, what you want to do is take people off social media into a place that you own, right? And that could look different for all of you. So for some people, that's going to be their email list. Some people, that's going to be their website and their blog. Some people, that's going to be a community. Like I have a community on school. It's a place that I own where I'm not reliant on LinkedIn. I can make the rules. I can do whatever I want there, right? And you're taking people into a place that now they can't just scroll on social media and just see the next post, or the next person trying to sell them something, or the next person who's offering the same thing as you. Now they're in your world. Okay. A newsletter is a really good example of this as well, right? You can use these things to make them feel like they're part of something. They belong to something where they feel seen, they feel heard and understood. So it's out of the scope of this video, but of course, you want to understand who you're selling to, who is the person you're helping, your avatar, right? Your target market, whatever, all these words. What you want to do is make them feel understood and like they belong to something. And if you can write newsletters or blog posts or create a community where they feel like you understand them, you understand their problems, you're helping them solve these, you understand where they've been because you've been there. Oh man, you're going to be nurturing them without them even knowing you're doing it, because that's the whole goal, right? Is to build that trust, that relationships that we talked about in the beginning. So, really important to create your own world, your own sense of a place where they belong that's outside of social media, which is why nurturing is the best way to do that. Third one, not having a clear next step. Okay. This one's easy to overlook. I mean, you hear it all the time. You must have a CTA. You must have a CTA. But what does a CTA really mean? Well, you want it to be the next step that's logical for them. So, for example, me connecting with you on LinkedIn, the logical next step is not me trying to get you on a sales call. That's not a logical or an emotional next step, right? It doesn't make sense. And so what I would want to do is think like, what's the next step for this person, right? So if somebody, like, these are a few questions that you can ask yourself, right? If someone reads your content, then what? If someone signs up for your lead magnet, then what? What do they do next? When someone books a call but doesn't buy, then what? So for me, for example, right, when someone reads my content on LinkedIn, I'm always doing call to actions to get people inside my school community. Sometimes to a lead magnet or something that I've created, but generally it's my school community. Why? Because it's my world. I own it. It's a place where I can set the rules and nurture people, right? So that's the second one. So once someone signs up to my lead magnet, well, then what? Well, what's the next step, right? I can try to get them onto a call now because they've seen me on calls, they've seen my content, they've been in my community, they know me, they understand me, they trust me. And then if someone gets on a call with me and they don't buy, well, it's like, okay, well then what? Maybe they haven't been nurtured enough, or maybe just genuinely it's not the right time for them to buy. They don't have the finances or they're whatever. There's always going to be a reason, right? So you need to figure out what is the next thing that they need to do after they take an action. So it's a very simple way to look at it, but it'll help you reframe the way you think of nurturing, because most people, like I said, are trying to go from 0 to 100. It's like an analogy that I like that I've heard is taking someone on a first date and then proposing to them, right? You're not going to take like a lead who just connects with you on LinkedIn, especially if you sent the connection to them, and then just try to get them on a call. Like, it doesn't make sense. So what's the next step? And you're going to be nurturing at every single step. So make sure that you have all of these, okay? Number 4, not indoctrinating your philosophy and methodology. So I want to go a little bit deeper into this. So something you want to ask yourself, okay, is what enemies are you fighting for them? So you know your target market, you know who you can help, you know them inside and out, you know their pains, their fears, their desires, what keeps them up at night, all of these things. What are their enemies, right? What are the things that they're struggling with? They're not just physical things. They could be emotions, they could be thoughts, right? They could be society. But what are these enemies? What causes? What are you fighting for them? You need to take a stand for them. You need to fight for them. All right? What are they doing wrong that's costing them money, happiness, and peace? So you want to like tell them, like, hey, like even right now, I'm literally doing this. I am telling you guys that if you do not nurture, you are missing out on money. You are missing out on clients. Okay. And it's costing you money, happiness, peace, because now you're playing business on hard mode, all of these things. Okay. The next point, how do you solve their problems? Right. And get them closer to their dreams. So I could ask any of you who's watching this, what is your biggest problem? And then if you told me what your problem was right now in your business, or it doesn't have to be business, depending on what your offer is, you would try to figure out, how do I solve that specifically for you? And then that would be your methodology, right? And so how do you get them closer to their dreams and away from their problems? And then why is your way the best versus all competitors? You need to know this, and you need to tell them that all the time. You need to be reminding them in your emails, in your content, wherever you nurture, you need to be reminding them of all of these things. Okay. Why your way is the best versus other competition. I didn't even write this, but I'm going to add it, which is your social proof. You need to always be telling people what you've done, results you've gotten people, even if you haven't gotten your clients' results yet, right? What results have you gotten for yourself? You're indoctrinating them and you're showing them, holy, this person, this guy or girl is really good at what they do. Look at them. They're getting people results. They're getting these results. You need to like start indoctrinating them on you, your philosophy, your methodology. And then number 5, this one has saved me so much time, really important. Seems complicated when you first set it up, but I promise you it's not, which is not having an asset repurposing system. So as I've been going longer and longer in my journey of solopreneurship, creating content online, running an online business, I have switched my mindset to creating assets instead of just content, or like I'm creating things that I can use with really high leverage. So I'll explain what I mean by that. So essentially, you want to go deep into a topic, okay, to teach your philosophy, your method, keep them in your world. You want to reinforce those without writing from scratch. And then you want to create assets that nurture over time, like a blog. So to be more specific here, what I'm talking about is an asset is a long form piece of content that you only have to write one time. And then that piece of content you can turn into like your social media posts, your lead magnets, videos, things like that. So for me, I'm going to get into this in a second, but essentially for me, what I do is I create a weekly newsletter. Okay. It's about 1,000 words. It takes me about 2 hours to write it. But then from there, after I've created this asset, I can publish that to my blog online. So now people can read my blog. Like you can read my blog from 3 years ago online. So I'm nurturing. But also, I take my weekly blog and I chunk that down into my LinkedIn content for the week. So now all of my content on LinkedIn is coming from this one asset. So now I'm not having to write a newsletter and then separate LinkedIn posts, right? It's high leverage. And most people don't do this. But another thing that's really important about this is you get to go deep into a topic. So if I go deep into a newsletter, right? And I get to teach you about my philosophy, my method, and keep you in my world. Well, when I repurpose that to LinkedIn, now I'm bringing other people into my world. I can even link it back to my blog. But more importantly, I'm driving home my philosophy, my method, all of these things that I've been telling you about, and I'm reinforcing my ideas consistently instead of every day just trying to come up with like a new idea on a LinkedIn post, right? So now I'm, like I said here, reinforcing those ideas without writing from scratch. The last thing you want to do is sit down every day and have to write from a blank piece of paper or a blank screen, right? So creating this asset is so powerful because from there, all you have to do is repurpose it and it avoids you writing from scratch. And then it nurtures over time. Like I said, a blog. Even higher leverage, you can take that newsletter and you can just use it as a script for your YouTube videos, right? And now you have a video from one asset and then content. You can take that YouTube video, turn it into shorts, right? So that's what we're talking about here when we're talking about a repurposing system and creating assets, things that nurture long term. So one final thing on this, because I'm very like passionate about this, is you got to think about a LinkedIn post and how far it is from being an asset for you. Because if I write a LinkedIn post in one day, people are already looking at the content from the new day, right? In 2 days, it's kind of disappearing. In 2 weeks, it's gone. It's forgotten. Whereas my blog post, I could write one blog post, write a LinkedIn post and tag somebody or the link for somebody to go to it. And they could go to my blog and all of a sudden there's hours of content for them to read now, right? That's the difference between an asset and versus just creating something on social media that's gone within a day. Okay. You got to start thinking in terms of assets, of course, and nurturing. All right. And to sum it up and help you actually avoid these nurturing mistakes, this is all you got to do. You have to create a nurturing system ASAP. So if you're watching this and you're like, damn, Darian, I do not have a system. I have no way that I'm actually nurturing people. I am just trying to sell people right away and nobody's buying. Well, this is why. So you need to create that system as soon as possible. Next, you won't need to get people off social media to something you own. This is a non negotiable if you're trying to make money online. Like, you have to be able to show them your world and get them into your world that you've created. Third, always think of the logical next step, right? So I'm kind of beating this one over the head, but I'm going to say it again. You do not connect with someone on LinkedIn and then try to sell them a 5K offer in your first message. It's not going to work. And literally, you're going to waste so much of your time doing this when all that time could just be spent nurturing people. Because the longer you create the system, the more clients it's creating for you every day, all the time, right? Because the people are going to be nurturing every week, every day. You're going to be nurturing people, and you're going to have people coming and ready to buy over time versus just trying to find somebody every day or every week. And that's how you stay chasing and never actually having consistent client flow. Next one, define your core philosophy and your methodology to getting your clients a result. So if you don't have a philosophy of what your way is of getting a client a result, why is your way better than everybody else's, right? What pain are people going to stay in if they don't adopt your philosophy? If you don't have that and you don't have a method, like a clear system or roadmap for them to get a result, you need to start focusing on that because all your content, all your nurturing system needs to reinforce those. And then finally, create assets that can be repurposed into smaller pieces of LinkedIn. So or pieces of content. It doesn't have to be on LinkedIn, but just an example of mine, I already showed you. One newsletter weekly turns into LinkedIn content and then emails, and those go to my lead magnet, which goes to an offer. It doesn't always have to be my one-to-one offer. It could be a paid low ticket call. It could be something like that. The one thing you don't want to do is drive them backwards. And what I mean by that is you don't want to take somebody who's already maybe bought like a low ticket product or something and try to show them into something that's like free, right? You want to keep them progressing. So ideally, they would go from like your social media into your world, into your world, into something paid, and then into your paid, into your core offer. That would be the flow. And that's how you would nurture them properly over time. And with that being said, those are the 5 deadly nurturing mistakes that we all need to avoid if we want to make money, if we want to stop chasing people, and if we want to stop burning bridges and burning leads. This is the way to do it. And yeah, that's it.